Hey to the most amazing nurses. It is Dr. V here with Morning Infusion with Dr. V podcast, where we are intentional about teaching nurses how to work from anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time, building profitable nurse coaching and consulting businesses. You will hear from amazing guests that have grown their companies and want to share insight into how you can do the same to change the face of healthcare as we know it. If you want to grow your businesses and leverage your knowledge as a nurse to grow wildly successful businesses at the top, instead of working your way to the top, head on over and join our Millionaire Nurse CEO group on Facebook, where you can ask questions and get updates on our live and virtual events to help you grow your businesses. So good morning. So one of the things that I want to ask you to do before we even get started is that you like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel, because we want to get the news out that Miss Jenell Kelly is amazing, and we want to make sure that everybody knows about her, okay? So here we go. So let me ask Miss Jenell Kelly, tell us who you are in your own words.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for A, this opportunity, B, just what you have created, right, for other nurses. So, because it's so needed in this world. And so my name's Jenell Kelly. I am the founder of Aligned Life and the Chicks and Coffee community. I elevate, educate, empower women through my programs and products. I was an ER nurse for, 20 years out of my 33-year nursing career. Worked my way up to the top, loved it. It was my passion and purpose until one day I realized it wasn't. I was trying to serve from that empty cup. It was broken all over the floor. There was no cup anymore. And I realized I had to take care of myself, and that my passion and my purpose had changed. And it was scary, but taking that leap and making that move 7 years ago was just one of the best things I could do for myself. And so, that's why I think the work that you're doing as well is just so important for people, because I think sometimes we know that and yet we don't do it, right? Fear holds us back. So with that being said, I live in South Florida. I love my puppies. I work from home. I still have a foot in nursing, and because that entrepreneurial ride can be, really up and down and all over the place, but it is a beautiful journey. So
I love it. So tell us a little bit about what your journey has looked like, as far as the entrepreneurial journey, because you really help people with clarity. And, we talked about this a little bit before, about whether you think that it's just a nursing thing, or tell us, what do you think about that?
Sure. So my journey started out when I took that step, it was like, for a nurse for 6 months was telling me about an opportunity. So it wasn't, I was like, yeah, let's do this. And that was after 2 years of knowing that I wanted something else. Okay. So sometimes it takes that little bit of time. And I say it really is about timing in life. We can't move people or support them even any further than where they're willing to go. And sometimes that's like a God-giving time. And it was at first, I think I had shared with you before, these women that had come into my life were so kind and nice and uplifting and supportive. I was like, what do you want from me? I didn't even realize that, like, the trust, I was the ER nurse. I was a little edgy. I had my community. I had my expertise, but anything outside of that, I think it was just because it was different to me, and I just learned to love them, grow with them. I wouldn't be where I am today without them. And at the end of that first year of building that virtual health and wellness company, I realized that I wanted bigger. And I wanted more. And I was like, okay, they're telling me what to do. I have the support. I have the blueprint. I'm smart enough to do it. But I was stopping myself. And I just wasn't doing what needed to be done. And I'm like, this doesn't even make sense, And I knew it was something inside. And that curiosity kind of became the mentor, led me into transformational work, emotional intelligence, mindset, and really gaining clarity. And through that whole thing is what I realized is the main thing I needed was clarity. And I kind of giggle now because I'm the clarity and insight expert, right? I'm a certified clarity catalyst coach. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. Sometimes what we need most when we go on that journey to discover it and do all the work to get there is then what God was wanting us to do, because then you take that gift and you share it with the world, right? We all, I think we had mentioned before, we all have challenges. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and they'll look different for each one of us. But when someone goes through such a challenge and they have figured it out, I'm like, okay, how are you sharing that with the world? Because if we're not, like, then what was the point of going through the challenge? Like, we're not here to be tortured, right? We're here to learn and grow. So it's like post-traumatic growth, I call it, versus that post-traumatic stress. So how do we, create that in the world? And that's really through tools and techniques of mindset and understanding that whole inner world in our mind that we have going on, and all the little voices and, all the not enoughs and not good enough. And yeah, so that journey was just beautiful, and that became my passion.
So you said that little time. Number one, you said that when you came out, you were like, well, what do they want from me?
Yeah.
As nurses, one of the things that we do is we struggle with people really just want to help us sometimes in this entrepreneurial world, right? Like I had to find a tribe that really, really wanted to help me. And that really, really changed how I moved, right?
Yeah.
So the second thing that you said was that you struggled with clarity. And then after struggling with clarity, now you're the clarity catalyst. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that you typically are your customer avatar, typically, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it was, I knew nothing about business when I first started, nothing.
Right.
And when I got in, I wanted to, like, I lived, ate, slept it, business, right? All the time. I still do, right? And because of that, then I knew that that was what I needed to do. And then the third thing that you said was you went through these things.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, what they do is they think, woe is me, I went through this and I shouldn't be able to move forward. But the reality is that if you went through it, then you went through it so that you could help somebody else through it. It is not for you.
Right.
The trial is for you to help somebody else get through it. And so when you look at it from that lens, then it doesn't make you depressed. It gives you motivation in order to move forward. So I love, love, love all of that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You had asked one other thing, Dr. V. You asked if I thought it was just nurses that experience this. It's everybody in this world, right? Whatever their career path, whatever their journey is, we all have that same voice in our head. We have so many similarities, but then we have so many unique gifts and talents. But what's similar, I think, on this journey being down here in this human form, right, is having those same challenges. And that's why it's so important that we help one another and lift one another to get through it, right?
So do you think that your nurse helped you to change, to transform? Do you think that helped you in that journey?
I know for certain that being a nurse was God's calling, right? We've talked about that a little bit before. That was God's calling. That wasn't my choice. And there were people whose lives, I look at sickness and disease very differently now. Dis-ease is dis-ease, right? And sickness and 99%, like, let's go, right? And if we talk about my challenges, I have every platform to stand on here and say that with love and compassion, because when people are experiencing it, it's real in their world. Until we can help people see the world differently, and then they're no longer a victim of that circumstance. But in that time, there was so many lives that I was able to touch and bless. And in that, yes, they were doing it back for me. The thing was, I didn't have the knowledge and the tools and the techniques that I have now to understand things. And so I allowed that energy to kind of come onto me, and that heaviness, and then being in the ER, we see life, we see death. And then we see life, we see death, we see life, we give a turkey sandwich out. We see death, we see life, right? And we're just meant to move through the rooms and just move through the emotions with no time. So that's we put this armor on to protect ourselves, right? And in that time, it does protect us, and it helps us do the job that God had I'm talking for myself, that God had put me there to do. The thing was, after that armor was no longer serving me because it was becoming too heavy. And that's when God said, okay, this isn't for you anymore. Thank you. And you may go now. And so what is it you want? Right? And it was just, God going backwards to tell the story is much easier than when I was going through it. Releasing myself from nursing in a sense mentally was huge. It was like I had to get permission. And it was like, because I identified as who I was. I didn't understand that nursing was something I did. It wasn't who I was, but I didn't know that then, So I felt like I was giving up myself and my identity, and who was I without that? Who was I without running, the trauma center down here? Who was I without being the nurse in charge? Who was I without being able to help and uplift and raise other little nurses, like all those fun things? Who was I without that? I didn't know. And that was the real journey that I went on.
That is spot on.
Right?
It as good as it was in, because we do identify as I am a nurse, and nothing else. Like, you are so much more than just a nurse. And so let's go back to your grandma, because Miss Jenell Kelly didn't want to be a nurse. Okay.
No. I did not. So when I was young, my grandmother, I was about 6, if I am correct. My grandmother had cancer and she was on home hospice. And so when we would go visit, I have a sister who's 2 years older than me. And she would help brush her hair and she would feed my grandmother and she'd sit beside her and hold her hand. And I was like 20 feet away from the bed. And my mom, like when we would go to leave to go home, was like, I still remember her hands. I could feel her hands pushing me up against my little back. Go give her a hug, go. And I was it freaked me out. I don't know what it was. And through the years of growing up, my sister was like, she kept saying how she wanted to be a nurse. This girl, I was going to be a hairdresser. I was going to be a bartender. I was going to be a flight attendant. I was going to be all the things. It's funny because they were all service industry, pathways. But even when I became a nurse, I just needed a job because I had lost mine. I was about 17. And my mom's like, look, guys, we looked in the newspaper back then, by the way. My mom's like, look in the newspaper for a job. And I just circled something and I went on an interview. And that is how it happened. And it started as an aide to an LPN to the RN, the journey. And it wasn't my choice for sure. It was definitely God's like, nope, this is what I brought you here for. Right? Yeah.
So and then you went back to school and got your RN degree. So the catalyst for that.
The main catalyst for that was wanting to do travel nursing. I was always wanting to explore more in life. And I wanted travel nursing. And back then they didn't have it for LPNs. Right. So I was like, how do I get to do that? And, so I was like, I get to go do my RN. And then when I was 22, I had packed up a U-Haul and I brought all my stuff and moved from Pennsylvania to Florida. Fell in love with somebody. It was my first heartbreak. Right. And so that was the catalyst that sent me. I was like, well, I'll go back to school. It's something I have been wanting to do. Right. So even again, a challenge and a painful moment that became like a springboard, right, to do the next step in life, which was to go back to school and get that RN. And I did. And I went on to travel. So.
We were a story earlier about how the reason why I went back to school, because I was an LPN for about 10 years. And I went back actually at the 7-year mark. And one of the reasons why I went back was because there was an RN who was on the floor and there were 2 LPNs and we had 25 patients and 12 was down one hall, 13 was down another hall, med surg. And how that is.
Yeah.
It ended up that the nurse, the RN, she was checking charts and we couldn't say anything about it because we were LPNs. We were working really under her license. And I really, I was like, I really can't take care of these patients efficiently and effectively. This is crazy. And then I went downstairs to the emergency department because someone was supposed to be floated and I had been floated the night before. And so they were like, I'm not going down there. And so I said, well, I'll go down there. And I wanted to go down there because I wanted to be able to identify emergencies because, I was tired. I didn't want to run when I need to run, right? And so I ended up going down to the emergency department. And it has been an amazing journey since. Now, when you first started in the emergency department, how did you know that was something for you?
Well, mine was the same as an LPN. I was in clinical and we were supposed to go to the cath lab for the day. And the thought of just standing there and watching cath, it was just not my thing. And so a girlfriend that I was in school with, she was able to get her way into the ER for the day. And I thought, well, that sounds exciting. And so I wanted to do the same thing. And we were just lucky that our instructor had worked at that hospital and was able to get us a day, because LPNs weren't supposed to do clinical days in the ER, right? And when I got home that day, I sat with my roommates. I always joke because it was like three guys, like a construction worker or something else. Don't ask. After I moved to Florida, it was like this whirlwind of moving everywhere. But they sat there and they listened to me. And they're like, girl, that is where you belong. They're like, you have never come home from this school day and like, da, 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 you know, on and on. And I loved it. And I thought, oh, maybe they're right. You know, because I didn't know at the time. I was like, oh, maybe they're right. And that's how that happened. And I was excited. I went right for the Big Daddy. I went for the level 1 trauma center ER out of school with very well-meaning people telling me like, you're not going to get in there. They don't hire new nurses. LPNs don't count, like your backgrounds, like all this stuff. And this is like, when I think back, I think what a great, like, this is where someone can make it. You can make you or they can break you. You know, this is where we get a choice, because every choice we make, we give our power away or we empower ourselves. And so I empowered myself with that information. And I went in there like I owned the world. Like I was the best because I knew I had to sell myself. And it worked, right? I got hired on the spot. And it was challenging, guys. It was like not easy. So many days I drove home from orientation like crying. Like I was like, what did I think I could do? You know, there was like chaos everywhere in that ER. And I thought, what was I thinking? You know? But I stuck with it. It would have been really easy to walk away and go to something more simple, back to rehab nursing or whatever I was doing as an LPN, but I stayed with it. And then 2 years later, I went on to travel, like clear across to California, you know, and that was scary. Like all the good things are on the other side of fear. Right? It's all on that other side. When we can just get through it, like, it's like, oh, okay. And then the more you do it, right? I see you, V. I know you know. The more you do it over and over and over, it's like, even right now, I'm adding new things into my business and stuff. And I'm like, I was like so excited yesterday and I had all this success. You know, I woke up today and I was like, ooh. And then I laughed at myself because I was like, what are you doing? Nothing changed between yesterday and today. But those feelings, like that doubt wants to come up, right? Like I started thinking about all the things now you get to take this and really move forward, girl. You put it out there, like you get to go and you get to be successful with it. And that little bit came up. But when we have the right tools and the techniques, and you know, that's all the stuff I do now is to train that, because we're aware of it. And awareness is everything, right? And understanding those little voices is everything. And understanding we all go through the same thing. But Dr. B, I think I don't know if it was here earlier when we were talking, you said about having the right community, you know, and having a supportive community and an uplifting community. Because it only takes a few words to put doubt into your brain, you know, just from well-meaning people sometimes. And just because they want to protect us from what? But, you know, they think they don't want to see us fail for, I guess, their own sake. I don't know, because we can't get anywhere unless we fumble, we fall, we get up, we do it again, right? We do it again. And that's the glory of it, really, when you realize that.
You know, that was one of my friends. She's a nephrology nurse, and so she wanted to help other nephrology nurses. Actually, she started, she wanted to just do business to client. Mm-hmm. But with all the marketing that she was doing, she ended up landing within 6 weeks. And I remember this so specifically because she came to the call and she was in pure tears. And I said, are you okay? And she said that she had went to this person and she was excited and she told them about what she was doing. And they said, well, that's already in place, you know, mm-hmm. This was somebody she respected. Right. And this is already in place. This is not something that you can do. And so she was just crying. And I said, listen, you are on the cusp of your breakthrough. And sure enough, she came back and she had landed a 6-figure contract. I said,
wow. Wow, right?
But had she not had a coach,
right,
she would have stopped in her tracks, because it's a crap in the barrel type of mentality. And you don't really see it. The person may not see it that way sometimes, right? But it is. Just let them do it. If they fail at it, then they fail, right? Because you fail your way to success, really. You know, at the end of the day, you don't just lone rider into success. There's many failures along the way, right? And so understanding that it is okay for you to do that. But first of all, I wanted to know how you get into an apartment with 3 other guys. I just want to know.
Oh my goodness, listen. It was a big old house. So what happened is when I was 22, I just packed all my stuff in a U-Haul and I moved from Pennsylvania to Florida. And there was like palm trees, coconuts. I just knew there had to be more in the world than what was. I didn't grow up in a very, wonderful neighborhood or, the things, whatever. We all have our backstory. But once I got here, the young lady that I had become like roommates with, she had this monstrous dog who was like 150 pounds and it was like a puppy. It was just, and it would eat my shoes and my clothes and our couch and all the things. I couldn't live with her, right? I was just like, it just didn't work out. And I was like, I get along with everyone. And I'm like, this is not working. So then I ended up with another roommate and they ended up being like wacko, jacko. Like, it's so funny. I won't go into it here. So I had to get out of that. And I was like, what am I going to do? So my friends were trying to help with like, okay, who's looking for roommates? It just so happened it was all guys looking for a room. And I was like, okay, whatever. We had this most big, beautiful home with a pool and all this stuff. We ended up getting 2 dogs. I got a dog. One of the other guys got a dog. It was crazy. Like we had our own thing going on, but it worked. It worked for like a 2-year period. So yeah, it was just my 20s were interesting. But aren't they all? Yeah.
And I love what you said about going to the ER. They told you couldn't go down there, and you were like, watch me.
Yeah, right. You said something, and when you were just talking, and I can't remember, something came to my head. It'll come back to me because I thought it was really important to bring up, and now it will come back if it is. So I can't remember what that was, but just really the challenges. Going through challenges, I think, is what it is, and understanding that they're there to really support us and help us grow. And community. I want to talk about community. One of the most challenging things. So if you're someone listening to this and you're either thinking about stepping out and doing your own thing, or you're just getting started and you experience where the people around you, right? At first, they might cheer you on. They're your cheerleaders, right? These are the girls you hang out with, the guys you hang out with. Everything's great. And then like in 2 months, 3 months, like, and you're still wanting to tell them about your success or talk about your plan or what you're doing or where you're going, and they're not so responsive. Know that that's normal. Okay, just know that that's normal. Someone once told me, like, in 6 months from now, when you're having success, your friends are not going to be cheering you on. And I was like, that's crazy. I do everything for them. Like, we throw parties. Make sure they have the best baby showers, weddings, all the things, right? And it happened. And I remember, and it was about 6 months into when I was building the network marketing, right? And I was so excited and I was being celebrated, and I would share my pictures with them because I was just so excited. Like, I finally found my thing that was lighting me up, and it was like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's great. And when I was like declining the wanting to go out, when I was declining like the wine bar nights and all the things that we used to do, because now I had a bigger vision, then I was on a mission, right? And I had goals, and they didn't require alcohol or going out or shopping all the time. They required me to be committed to what I said I was going to do. My whole everything changed. Okay. And did it hurt? Yeah, for a minute, it hurt my heart. But you know what? I remember that woman on a stage that told me that would happen when I started to have success. So I went back to that in my head and I said, well, if it's happening, I'm having success. This means I'm on the right path. And I don't know why, but you said something, Dr. V, that God just wanted that to come out. Maybe someone's listening to this that needs to know that, because letting go of things that didn't serve me was a really challenging thing, whether it be people, places, relationships, right? Jobs, whatever it was. It was like I wanted to hold on, but I was becoming someone different, and those things weren't serving me. And for me, I felt like I was leaving people behind. And I realized someone really nice explained it to me. It's something I go put yourself in the right rooms, okay? Because you'll have conversations or people say something. It's one sentence sometimes that will change your life. And she had explained it in such a way that I was just kind of between two energy fields, right? Like I was becoming this person, but I was still here. And I was just kind of wobbling in between. And she's like, when you really get that, when you go forward, you're not leaving anyone behind. You're literally guiding the path. You're blazing the path for them when they're ready to go, oh, and to see what's possible. And for them to do that. And now I'm 7 years into this journey, and there's now nurses that I work beside that are now out there starting their entrepreneurial paths and stuff. Right. So it's just so interesting. But for whatever reason, I feel it needed to be said. Just keep going and find the right people and release. It doesn't mean you don't have to love them or, talk to them, but release it and find your tribe, find that new supportive community.
I love it. And I had a one time with a friend. Okay. So I was at the beach, and my tagline is you can work from anywhere around the world, making money, owning your own time, building profitable nurse coaching and consulting business. And I just finished my coaching session, and I was on the beach in a condo, and I was showing them, how I was able to do this. And she came under the comment. She was like, you are enticing people to leave, or nurses to leave the bedside. And so I raised the comment, and I went into her inbox, and I said, and this is the thing that I want people to understand. If I don't like liver, you can hand it to me when you want to.
Right.
I'm not going to want it, right?
Yeah.
If you don't want to be an entrepreneur, I can hand it to you all I want to. I'm just giving you the option of it, right? And see, a lot of people, they don't see it like that. They see it like, well, you're taking nurses from the bedside. The nurses, they ain't want to stay at the bedside. They want to stay at the bedside, they stay at the bedside, right? It's crazy. So anyway, you talked about, and this is one thing, we're going to get into this spinal cord because we need to. So, but you talked about just pouring from an empty cup. So tell me how you feel about pouring from a full cup. So well, first it was about learning boundaries, right? Healthy boundaries. And boundaries, they look different. Sometimes we hear that word and it's like, wait, what? And it's about saying no to everything or stuff. No, it's not about that. It's really about learning, for me, self-care, self-worth, self-love, time for myself, because I'm a giver. And if you're a nurse, you probably are empathic, and you are probably much a giver, and if you're anything like me, you put everybody else in front of yourself, and you are on the back burner. And I think women in general do that. I don't think it's just nurses. I know moms, plenty of moms, whether a nurse, not a nurse, but women in general, I think we do that until we learn better. Because when we're doing that, people are getting like the rest of us versus getting the best of us, and, you go home from work and your family's getting the rest of you, the leftover, the worn out, versus getting the best of you, which is still filled and happy and joyful. And so that's trying to serve in that empty cup. Well, kind of started 2011. I had a major spinal cord injury, right, that had led to paralysis, being told I wouldn't walk again. So I don't really know, so that was a journey in itself. And when I had walked out of the nursing field, when I was really feeling that I just had nothing left to give, it was 5 years into that learning to walk again journey. So I think there was a combination of things there that have played in my life where I should have been being taken care of. I was still going and taking care of people. And why? Well, because, I needed income. Because if I've left it up to what the people around me had said, if I left it up to my circumstances, I was to be paralyzed and on disability. I never saw that for myself, right? So there I was, defying everything, not taking meds they wanted me to take, taking things I would need to take, all this stuff, and really guiding my own path through that. And it was exhausting. And I lost my home, and I spent every dime I had in savings to put myself through the therapy because insurance wouldn't pay anymore. You're not getting any better. And so that was a big thing to overcome. And there I was, 24/7 in pain, and nobody knew, because I was afraid if they knew at the hospital, I would lose my job because I wasn't cleared to go back to work, right? I just said, listen, you can do your own thing in life. When you learn that, you'll learn that. But with that being said, so I was really serving from an empty cup.
And then when I stepped away and I was, still serving others, but it was just different. I was doing it on my time with something I wanted to do from home, from travel, like, how you had mentioned, sometimes it was from drinking cocktails in a pool because I want a free trip, like there was all these different things. And I thought, God, this is amazing, and there was that entrepreneurial path. And then, what was it, like 10 years, I guess, later, I was now a speaker and I was a trainer and I'm on stages and I co-authored the books, right? Like I didn't know all that stuff was going to happen. And I was on top of the world. And let me tell you, that devil energy will come in, and right when you're up to good things that God has put you into and you're top of your game and you think you're untouchable, right? I did all the work. I had to have a surgery because I was hit by a car, sitting in my car and a truck ran me over. And I thought, well, okay, this is interesting. And so about a year and a half ago, I had surgery after holistically trying to fix the whole spine for 2 years, all the things. And that surgery, they dissected an artery and it led to having a posterior stroke. Guys, that was a year and a half ago, right? Like I wasn't supposed to survive that. Well, here I am. So if I sit here and I preach about we have challenges and yours are probably not having a stroke and overcoming paralysis, right? But I'm sure your challenges are just as great as my challenges were. And this just goes to show when we have the proper mindset, when we have the tools and the techniques and we're connected to God, for me, it's God and faith and all the things, like you get through all of it. You'll never be given anything you cannot handle. It's a choice. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. It is a freaking choice. Being tired is a choice. Waking up is a choice. Overcoming things is a choice. Being a victim is a choice. Having success is a choice. Staying poor is a choice. It's all a choice, right? And to get to understanding that it's a choice takes work. Because if you had said that to me, I probably would have smacked you 5 years ago, right? It's not a choice,
Right? It's all yeah. It's hard to be poor. It's hard to be rich, right? So you can take your pick. Take your pick as to what you want, right?
Yeah, right. It takes work to be both.
Right.
Exactly. It takes work to be both. Well, we get payoffs, Dr. V. When we stay in we call it a victim mode, right? In transformational training, we actually, guys, we get payoffs. I'll speak from eyes because I don't want everybody to think I'm preaching to them. I got payoffs from being unclear. Let's just start with the clarity point. When I would be unclear, maybe you and I were having a conversation and I didn't want to be part of it because whatever. So I would just be like, oh, I don't understand. And I would act like I didn't understand. I don't understand. Now, I wasn't conscious of the fact that I was saying that, right? Like I was just saying it. And I used it a lot of times in my life. Like, like I wasn't happy in my nursing job or anything, but it was just like, you don't want to be there anymore, but you'll act like, well, I don't know what else I can do. Oh, please, there's 1,000 things that you can do. But it's easy to say, I don't know. It's easy to listen to the voices in the head because we don't know any better, right? So I say everything starts with clarity. Everything starts with clarity because it's about getting clear on what is coming from above, right? And then getting clear on your message, getting clear on what you want, and getting clear that fear is just it doesn't even exist. And there's so many things. Sorry, I don't even know where that all just came from.
But it was good because what you did was basically you were like death in the tongue. And every time you would say that, then you were unclear. And then there's those red light, what I call red light and green light, red light statements and green light questions. So the red light statement is, and that stops you, okay? Red light statement says, I don't know. And so then your brain says, well, you don't know. There's no point in us going forward. But the green light statement says, we need to figure this out. So the brain says, well, okay, let us figure it out, right? And so that power of life and death in the tongue. And so I tell people all the time, stop. You are your own worst enemy when you roll out of your mouth. And it's in Proverbs, power of life and death in the tongue. Stop saying that you cannot, because you can. You can do anything. When I think about, Warren Buffett and how he made most of his money after the age of 50, people will be like, well, I'm too old and I just want to go into retirement. Chica, come on. Right?
Yeah, I agree. Have you heard of your word is your wand?
Mm-mm.
Okay, your word is your wand, and it's exactly what you're doing with your red and green light. So, and I think the thing that gives me like nails down a chalkboard is anytime someone's talking, they go, well, I'm just saying, because we're never just saying anything. Your word is your wand. You're making declarations when you speak, right? Because what happens is we speak, we hear these words, we create a thought, from our thoughts become our action. So we take action on whatever we say, or we don't take action, or red or green lights, right? Or we don't take the action. And from either action or inaction, we get a result, right? So here's this result. So what do? We look at our result. Let's say it's our bank account. We look at our result, which is our bank account, and we judge ourselves based on that result. But where did that result come from? It came from the action you took, from the thought you thought, from the words you spoke, right? So this is like the power of affirmation and stuff. And like you said, it's right in the Bible too. But there's this one's from the 1800s. Florence Chauvinel or Chauvinfall or something is her name. I'll send it to you. But your word is your wand. And it's so powerful when you realize that. You start to clean up your language. And when we clean up our language, we clean up our thoughts. When we clean up our thoughts, we clean up the way we act. Because how we do one thing is how we do everything.
Facts.
Right? Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah.
Words about your mind hears it, so then it becomes your thoughts. So I love that. Listen, we could talk all day because
I know.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you these rapid fire questions. So, what has been your most rewarding thing about nursing?
Oh wow. The most rewarding thing about nursing. There's so many things, and it was all internal. Like, it was never external. It was never about getting the certificate or the Daisy Award or any of these things. The most rewarding was just that inner gratification, truly. And I walked out of patients' rooms sometimes, girl, and I would just be like, God, remember me for this. Like, some of those things we do behind closed doors with and for our patients. But it was always just a reward that I would get from my patient. The thank you, the hug, the love, the you're an angel. And it didn't really hit me back then what they meant by that. So I get it more now. Yeah.
What are some common misconceptions about nursing?
Oh, good Lord in heaven. Please don't watch any shows on TV about these nursing things. I can't watch any of them. I'm just like, please, like, no one's having sex in a closet. No, well, maybe they are, but they weren't where I was coming from, right? Nobody looks like that. It's not that easy. It's not that fun. There's so much emotional work that is done in that arena that doesn't even get acknowledged, right? Everybody in nursing was heroes, guys, a few years ago. Where did that go?
Wow.
Right? Isn't it kind of funny how the world just likes to play on what they play on? So if you're going to be a nurse, you got to do it for that inner thing. It's not for the money. It's definitely not a job to do for money, because the people that around you, whether you work with them or they're your patients, they will feel that, right? So I think it's just this myth that, it's a great job, you get into it, oh, there's all these different avenues you can go down, like all these things. And it's like, yes, and it's a calling. It is definitely a calling. Yeah.
So now, what are you reading now?
I'm sorry?
What are you reading now?
Oh, well, I actually host a mastermind. I'm facilitating Think and Grow Rich for Women. There's Think and Grow Rich, right, from Napoleon Hill. That's been around forever. But Think and Grow Rich for Women was rewritten by Sharon Lechter from the Napoleon Hill Foundation, because a lot of the stories in his book, because of when it's from, the era it was from, are a lot about men and men in business. And there's a big difference between the feminine and the masculine energy in business. And so I host these masterminds that we go into and we do the work. We do the work in the book, right? Like, everybody loves to read a book, and oh my God, this is such great stuff. And what do the typical will do? They go to the next chapter. They don't implement anything that was in chapter 1. So facilitating these masterminds really helps with, actually doing the work and keeping each other accountable.
I love it. Have you ever read Outwitting the Devil?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever read Outwitting the Devil?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Love it. So good. There's so many good books. And you know what's a really great book? I'd like to mention it is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. So that's the one in the Clarity Catalyst program. But guys, he takes it into a very easy level of understanding. He calls it the roommate in our head. And he's talking about that little voice that's constantly all day long. Right? And getting to understand who it is, because you can't be the voice and be listening to the voice, right, at the same time. So when you can start to distinguish your higher self from the other persona, it really will help move you forward in your life and in your business.
I love that. So now, who is the leader, living or dead, that you would like to have a conversation with?
Oh, I would love to, goodness, living or dead. Well, there would be two different reasons, for dead would be my grandmother, because I feel like I don't even feel anymore. I know that she is with me only always, and she's my biggest supporter. And, I think, from what I do recall from her, from just that being that little girl, is that she was different, she was powerful. And I think that in her life and her era when she was growing up, probably didn't have maybe didn't do the things, maybe didn't speak out as much as she wanted to, and take all the risks and chances. And I think that I'm doing that, is she's here as my biggest supporter. So I would love to speak with her and just have that conversation and gain that knowledge from her, in her life.
I love it.
Yeah.
The grandma that you didn't want to talk to, and you want to talk to her. I love it. So tell me, what is your favorite movie?
Oh, goodness. I'm not good with movies. I'm not. If you really want to know, it's that one where they go to Vegas and the tiger's in the bathroom and they're like, you don't want to talk about, but the guys go to Vegas. It's like, you don't know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea.
And the guy jumps out of the trunk of the car, and he's like they capture the guy. I'm gonna have to get the name of it. Someone here knows what I'm talking about. The guys go to Vegas and they party and they wake up and the tiger's in the bathroom and their buddy's on like top of the building on the mattress because they did like drugs and stuff.
I have to find out.
Okay, it's something Vegas. I don't remember what it's called.
How do you define success?
Oh, inner peace.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
What is your life's motto?
Oh, wow. Life's motto. Honestly, I feel like Nike right now. I'm like, just do it. I'm always like, let's go, let's just go 1 foot in front of the other. Let's go. And it's about just moving forward, continuous movement forward. Sometimes people could take that wrong. Sometimes that continuous movement forward is literally just getting yourself out of bed that day. Right? Because there are dark moments in everyone's life. And to break through, we get to break down. So, transformation work and changing that mindset, it's not butterflies and rainbows all the time, right? Because the magic's on the other side of the darkness, but you got to work through that. So to me, it's just like 1 foot at a time. Let's go. Sometimes you're leaping off mountains and you're taking on new things and you're having all the success. And other times you're like, I just can't even get out of bed today. And it's all part of the journey. And once you get through that, then, it gets a little bit easier. Yeah.
So good. So now where can people find you?
I think the best place, I just set up something, and as a business owner, entrepreneur, check this out. It's called Komi, Komi. So I'm Jenell, JENELL.Komi, KOMI.IO. And in that, when you open that up, you can set up all of your social media links. If you've ever been on any podcast, right? So I'll have this recording in there when it comes up. If you've been in any publications, if you have programs or products, all your stuff can go all in there. And you can put a landing page in there too, so that you can stay connected with the people that contact you. And it's write it down, girl. It's only like $10 a month. It's good, guys. It's Komi, KOMI.IO. So mine's my first name, Jenell.Komi, KOMI.IO. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this has been an amazing conversation. I have thoroughly enjoyed this time with you, Jenell. So thank you for coming on. It's just like chatting with the fellow ER nurses, and you're just amazing. So thank you for being who you are. And again, I ask that everyone like, share, subscribe, and comment so that we can ensure that this gets out to the world, right? We want to make sure that nurses see that there's innovation to be made, and it's not pulling nurses from the bedside. It is really, really helping nurses, supporting nurses who are at the bedside. So I just love it. And so join us also for our next masterclass. And so you ladies and gentlemen, you have an amazing rest of your day.